Rocky is probably the most iconic boxing movie of all time, and it's a movie that I've always been aware of, and I've seen clips of it here and there, mostly of the iconic moments and Rocky just going, "Yo, Adrian!" But I finally sat down and watched the movie in its entirety. I can see why it's considered not just one of the most iconic boxing movies of all time, but just one of the most iconic movies of all time, full stop. But I was surprised with how little time was actually spent boxing. There are only like 2 fights in the movie, and the movie isn't even really about boxing. It's a movie that tells the story of an underdog, and most people love an underdog story, myself included. Rocky is a character that's shown and told that he has a lot of potential, but isn't fully living up to it, and is waiting for an opportunity to come up, and by chance he has the opportunity of a lifetime, and it's from here that we get what we all came for, the training montages. Also, nothing beats the iconic theme for getting motivation to train. Upon watching this, I think that this is Stallone's best performance to date, and the supporting cast and characters are all fantastic as well. I never not enjoy any character that Carl Weathers plays. He's just so damn charming.
Apollo Creed meets the Italian Stallion. Sounds like a damn monster movie.
We all enjoy an underdog story. We all want to see Rocky get his chance and see if he can go the distance with the world champion, which of course that he does. Can't help but enjoy Rocky's character. He's such a damn likable character. He's not perfect. He's just trying to make his way in the world, trying to find love and doing what he enjoys. Boxing. As someone who has an interest in boxing, I enjoyed watching the boxing scenes and seeing the different boxing styles reflected in the characters. Rocky is a slugger brawler, going in head first and using raw power with very, very little finesse, kind of representing his straightforward thinking to problems and his approach to life. And Apollo Creed being an outfighter, keeping Rocky at a distance and using good footwork to outmaneuver his opponent. I have been meaning to watch this film for such a long time, like decades basically, and I'm so glad that I finally did. There will definitely be some rewatches in the future for when I need an inspiring story and some motivation to train. So right off the bat, I enjoyed this one more than the first. But don't get me wrong, I still very much love the first Rocky movie. This one did an excellent job of showing Rocky's struggles after his match with Apollo Creed. He sustained significant injuries and is told that he can't box anymore. Spoiler alert, I think he does get better and he's actually able to box again. Actually, quite a lot. And now he's seen as much more of a celebrity, but doesn't have much experience of money and runs into financial issues. I like how it tackles that subject. Somebody who grows up with not a lot of money is not going to really know how to properly manage it when they come into a lot of money. The movie tackles that very well. I love how it takes the high that the previous movie took you, Rocky going the distance with the world champion, and showing you that the aftermath of a happy ending isn't always easy or happy. Just like real life, it isn't always a fairy tale. I like Rocky even more as a character in this one. No matter how others treat him, he still treats others with respect. Like how he never trash talks Apollo even when he's asked to say something derogatory about him.
Rocky, got anything derogatory to say about the champ?
Derogatory? Yeah, he's great.
In any other movie, the main character would beat the ass out of that guy in the gym who disrespects him. But not Rocky, he just chooses to ignore it and just go on his own way. I was expecting a confrontation with that guy where Rocky beats his ass, but never happens. He chooses to focus on his goal, and it speaks volumes about his character. The final fight for me is a bit of a mixed bag. The fight pretty much goes as follows. Rocky is told to cover and protect his eye that was damaged in the previous movie, and then proceeds to eat every single jab that Apollo throws with no head movement. I also really adore the relationship between Rocky and Adrian as well. It's so much better in this movie when it's been properly established instead of the kind of weird, almost outdated kind of way their relationship came about in the first movie. The kind of old school way of thinking you just wear a woman down until she agrees to go out with you. I really had a good time with this one, and I'm really looking forward to the next few movies. It only gets better from here, right guys? Guys? I thought that Rocky 3 was going to be so much worse than the 2 previous movies. Like, by a lot. But the developing friendship between Rocky and Apollo is what I love most about this movie. And pretty much saved it for me. It has some of my favorite training montages so far. The baby oil part of the budget must have been absolutely insane. Also, Sylvester Stallone got in absolutely phenomenal shape for this one. Like, he was already in good shape in the first 2, but he definitely had a lot more muscle tone in this one. He must have cut right back down on that water. And I didn't expect the death of Mickey to rock me so hard. It's such a well done and emotional scene. Oh yeah, spoiler alert for a movie that came out more than 30 years ago. And Mr. T is in this movie, doing what he does normally, I guess. He's just yelling at everyone all the time.
Nobody can beat me. You tell him what I said. Are you next? I'm gonna kill him.
I don't fucking know. I didn't watch the A-Team. The pacing of the movie is absolutely insane. It fits in so much in an hour and a half runtime. Like, it fits in Paulie getting jealous of Rocky, which is resolved and dropped almost immediately. Rocky fighting an exhibition match against Hulk Hogan. Rocky being civilized with his training. Mickey dying. Rocky losing against Lang. Being retrained by Apollo, finally opening up to Adrian about his fears, and finally defeating Clubber Lang, all in an hour and a half runtime. It fits a lot. The fights are pretty boring. Well, I don't want to say boring, but they're not particularly well choreographed. It's pretty much just Rocky and Clubber Lang throwing hooks and body shots at each other, and it just shows that Lang is a stronger fighter by far. Rocky can't beat him head on, and Apollo has to teach Rocky how to actually box. You know, like using head movement and footwork to outmaneuver your opponents like most boxers these days. I really did enjoy the movie, but it feels like they were trying to pad it out a lot, even though it was only an hour and a half long. Like adding the jealousy angle from Paulie, which wasn't really explored and was dropped almost immediately, like I said. Not as good as the first 2, but I still found it an enjoyable Rocky movie, especially for a third installment. Third installments aren't always good in a film franchise, but this one was pretty good. Wow. I never realized that the Cold War ended because Rocky beat Drago in a boxing match. To me, this movie isn't just a movie. This is a documentary of real-life events. This is the 4th entry in the Rocky series, and it dials it up to 11. I knew that Apollo died in this movie due to cultural osmosis. Oh, spoilers for a movie that is older than I am. It didn't quite have the big emotional impact that I was expecting when Apollo died, but I knew it was going to happen before seeing the movie. I still think Mickey's death in the previous movie hit harder than Apollo's, unfortunately, because I really like Apollo Creed. Completely forgetting about his financial troubles in previous movies, he seems to have settled into his wealthy lifestyle nicely.
I seem to have relaxed into it nicely.
I like Dolph Lundgren as a villain. Well, he's not really a villain in the movie. He is kind of a puppet that's manipulated by his wife and country. I knew he didn't speak much in the movie, but I didn't realize he hardly speaks at all. It must have been one of the easiest paydays acting-wise for Dolph Lundgren.
I must break you.
And I like Bridget Nielsen's character as well. It's better than her other roles. Well, I've only ever seen one other role, and it's better than Red Sonja.
Why should you? It's no business of yours, and neither am I.
Now, what we are really here for in this movie is the training montages. And pretty much this movie is 1/3 training montages. And I am completely okay with that. I like the juxtaposition of the different training methods of Rocky and Drago, although it really should be the opposite for each character, because Drago's from Russia, so he should have the more rudimentary farmhouse kind of training, and Rocky is a rich guy from America, so he should have all the high-tech scientific gadgets and that kind of shit. It doesn't really make sense when you think about it, but hey, fuck it, it's a Rocky movie. And I like how we view movies have changed so much. Critics back in the day panned it for being absurd and over the top. but today we praise it for being absurd and over the top. It makes me wonder what movies are considered bad now, and they'll probably be appreciated a lot more in the future. Hey, we might all appreciate the 50 Shades trilogy.
What are butt plugs?
And how the Russians are portrayed in the movie pretty much makes this Cold War propaganda, but this was the 80s, and there were more than a few movies like this from time to time. All in all, a pretty solid entry for the 4th movie in a franchise, and I'll definitely watch it again in the future for training motivation. Oh, and Hearts on Fire is an absolute banger of a song, and that's all I've got to say. We finally made it to the Rocky movie that I almost knew nothing about. People really don't talk about this one, do they? I didn't hate it as a whole. There are some good ideas here that aren't executed very well or explored properly, but did they have to make Rocky poor again? Like, it doesn't seem to affect the movie overall, other than just to get him back to where he was in the first movie. Did it have to be that way? It really serves almost no purpose. You gotta love Rocky's relationship with his son. He goes, "Oh yeah, I have a son," and gives him attention for like 10 minutes, and then realizes he doesn't like boxing and they have nothing in common, so he starts training someone else and neglects his son again. This movie almost feels like a proto-Creed movie. Although, at this stage, I have yet to see Creed, but I know the gist of what happens in Creed. It's similar because Rocky finds a younger person to train, in this case, Tommy the Machine Gun, played by Tommy Morrison, who was actually a boxer in real life. And a very successful one, looking at his record. He even won against George Foreman, holy shit. But unfortunately, he died in 2013, rest in peace. His character I didn't like very much, and oh man. That hair was absolutely atrocious. But we were just coming out of the 80s in 1990. So I guess you can give it a pass. No, I can't give it a pass. That hair is terrible. My favorite moments from the movie are when Rocky is taking joy in teaching someone else and learning how to teach at the same time and trying to save him from falling into the same pitfalls that successful boxers fall into. And you get the sense that Rocky sees Tommy as more of a son than his actual son, even though Sage Stallone is Sylvester Stallone's actual son. And that's getting pretty confusing now that I'm thinking about it. I get the father-son dynamic of the movie as well. Robert is a very different person from Rocky, and Rocky isn't interested in that much else outside of boxing, so they don't have that much to relate to. I just wish it was more interesting in the movie. It's an interesting concept. Again, it's not really executed very well, and Rocky's son goes into a whole rebellious stage and everything, and it's all a bit cringe, and then they get over it and they're all happy again. Until they're not. And the final fight in this movie really is a letdown. It's not a proper match. It's just Rocky beating the shit out of Tommy because he chose a different trainer and you screwed him over and shit like that. And you just stop caring by the end of the movie. And I really see why this movie isn't talked about much in the franchise. This was the only one where I didn't really know what was going to happen in it because nobody talks about it apparently. But you can disagree with me. You don't need to take my word for it. You can see the movie for yourself and come up with your own opinion. Watching the final movie in the Rocky series, not including the Creed movies at this stage, has surprised me with the franchise as a whole. Most of the movies in this franchise are fantastic, including this one. I was always under the impression that the first movie is a classic and every movie coming after it is terrible. Well, that is the case for one of them, but I enjoyed almost every single solo Rocky movie, except 5. 1 and 2 are absolute classics. I loved 2 more than 1, but 1 is still fantastic. 3 is solid. 4 is absolutely bonkers and insane, and I love it. It's so absurd. 5 we don't talk about, and I was surprised with how much I like this one. Rocky is seen as a has-been old-time boxer. He's dealing with the death of his wife Adrian, his relationship with his son Robert is going nowhere, and he's trying to run a restaurant. A random CGI match is televised between him and the current world champion, Mason Dixon, and this causes Rocky to want to box again, and Mason is convinced to seek the match to improve his waning popularity. The ultimate movie about old school versus new school. Is that even a saying? Sylvester Stallone is in fantastic shape for his age in this movie. He's about 60 at the time that this was made. You get a good montage as well, because really, that's what Rocky is about.
Yeah, boy.
Rocky is really portrayed as just a big guy that likes to help people. It seems like Rocky is how Sylvester Stallone sees himself, or he wants to be himself. He wants to help everyone that he has ever had contact with, like Spider, who was his first match in the series, and that young girl he helped in the first movie as well. There are a lot of callbacks and nostalgia for the first movie in this movie. The final match in the movie, I can appreciate it because they tried to make it look like an actual televised boxing event. The irony is, in trying to make it look realistic, it looks really fake. It just can't be shot the same. You see so many shots that don't land properly and people don't react in time. It just doesn't work for this movie. And I really liked Rocky Balboa's character in the movie. I like how they chose not to knock out Mason Dixon at the end of the movie. The match wasn't about Rocky Balboa winning, it was just proving that he still had what it takes at his age to go 15 rounds with the world champion. And I really loved that about the movie. But yeah, this movie, I really, really enjoyed it. I was very surprised, and this franchise as a whole has been solid. Really, really good. As always, thank you for listening to me ramble on about a movie for a few minutes. I do appreciate it. Thank you again. Have a good one.